All right, well, we are live with Called to Youth Ministries' first Youth Pastor Church, and this is true youth ministry style. We have duct tape holding everything together, but I'm here with Jimn Kyles, Jonathan Greenhill, and Nate Dame, and myself, and we're using a cell phone for Jim's microphone, so we'll see how this goes. But we're so excited to be here for the first time, first Youth Pastor Church, and before we really jump into it, I want to have Nate share a little bit about the mission and vision of Called to Youth Ministry, where we come from. So Nate, why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit about Called to Youth Ministry?
Absolutely, and I hope you guys like my yellow background as well. Another little technical fun. It seems that when the sun goes down and the lighting seems to turn my entire room yellow. That's not actually the paint color behind me, believe it or not. But we're really looking forward to what Youth Pastor Church is going to turn into and grow into, because we see it as an opportunity, Lord willing, to provide encouragement, training ideas to anyone right here, right now. Let's just hop online and let's spend some time talking youth ministry. Jim is here to share about building a high-performance team in youth ministry for this first time together, and we'll be doing this again every month. So please, hope you can come back and join us, and we just hope it's helpful for you, beneficial. Love to hear your feedback as well. Called to Youth Ministry started a few years ago, about 3.5 years ago now, when my wife and I just realized and kind of saw the story again and again. Hey, you know what? When youth pastors, when you don't have a support network, when you maybe don't even have any training, and you just are driven by this passion to reach students, burnout happens, and it can happen pretty quickly. And so we stepped in and said, let's just do whatever we can to help and serve and support those on the front lines of youth ministry. So that has grown into today, where we are hosting online training groups that are small groups led by veteran youth pastors that meet online and hang out just like this and get together and share, work through training together, pray together, share about their challenges, and share their victories together. These training groups have really grown and taken on their own new life, and we're just excited to watch how they grow. There's a new round of groups starting March 18th that we're really excited about. And that's really what Called Youth Ministry has become, this online entity to serve and support those on the front lines. And here we are trying a new thing with Youth Pastor Church, and like Nathan said, we got a lot of duct tape, but hey, it's working so far, right?
Yeah, we're making it work, absolutely. And the primary way that we do the support for youth pastors is through our online trainings and networking, and now through Youth Pastor Church, which we're super excited about. So if you're interested in getting more training for you or your volunteer staff, we would love to have you on board. But now, with no further ado, we are excited about having Jimn Kyles here with us. Everything I've been reading about him on YouthCanLead and Jimn Kyles, his own website, has been just absolutely fantastic. So I won't steal any more of his thunder. Jim, would you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about building a high-performance team?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to unplug this earpiece so I'm not hearing 3 repeats for me. So maybe if you guys need me, you just kind of wave me down. I'll put it back in here. We're kind of having to shift a few things due to some technical difficulties, but I really feel like you guys will...
I'm sure Jim is saying some amazing stuff right now.
Church, I said absolutely. We began to talk and dialogue, and one of the things that, if you know Nathan and all the guys, that they care the most about is building relationships. That it really is about people. So you have to understand this is not going to be a quick fix, 7 ways to grow the mega youth ministry per se, without the relational aspect of it, knowing that every life is a touched life, that we're looking to see deep heart change, that it's not just about numbers. I will tell you, having been in youth ministry for many, many, many years, there are lots of great things that will happen when you see a high-performing team. It's something that's a touch of God's sovereign work, as well as oftentimes it's great leadership that kind of spearheads what God does. I believe in the capacity mentality that God's Spirit, His presence is always pouring, just supernatural things in our lives. The thing that makes the difference is what our capacity is to receive what God is doing in our life. And so tonight I'd like to expand your capacity. This is something that I believe every person could walk away with. Just a few things to tweak what you're already doing. Many of you guys are doing a great job. I don't know you all individually, but I can imagine you're working as hard as you can. You're doing all that you can. You love people, and you love God. Some of you guys might have gotten into youth ministry willfully, and some of you not so willfully. You got kind of thrown into it. And I admire either one. The fact that you would say, yes, God, I'm going to do what either you've called me to do or what my senior pastor or senior leaders have called me to do. My hat is off to you. It is a challenging thing to do to reach young people effectively. And so we recognize that. Tonight I want to spend just a few minutes talking about high-performing teams. You have to understand that God created and designed teams. From the very foundation, there was Adam and Eve. There were two. Jesus had 12 disciples. You think about David had his mighty men. Teams are what God uses to touch and change the world. He didn't intend for us to live by ourselves, isolated, alone. But he actually intended for us to be together, to work in teams, and to together make a great impact in the world. You know, I'm reminded of the scripture that says a threefold cord is not easily broken. So anytime you got 2 or 3 people, that's a team. You're not by yourself. You're working with people, and it is a team effort. Knowing that, we're going to assume moving forward that every person on this call is a part of a team, which is a great thing. And so let's dive into a few things when we're talking about teams. There's a couple things. Number one, there are average teams, there are below average teams, and then there are above average teams. I'm going to give you a couple of word pictures and just something just to put your mind on, and let's see what comes to your mind first. McDonald's. So you guys think, oh, it's good, it's cheap. You know, if you're like me, man, it's cheap, man. You can go through there, you feed your whole family for like $6. But I will tell you one thing about McDonald's is they typically have terrible service. You're lucky to get everything you ordered, and you get what you pay for. Now, I don't know where everybody's from. I know where people from all over the nation. I'm from Texas, love Texas, and we have these things called Chick-fil-A. So even if you don't have one, you've heard of it, especially with all the PR media attention and the stance that the owners took in voicing their freedom of speech. But when you think of Chick-fil-A, what do you think of? I think of a team that says, yep, you're right, chicken. Not only chicken, but people that say, my pleasure. Really, it's your pleasure to give me chicken? Absolutely, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to serve you. It's my pleasure to get you that refill. It's my pleasure. There is an atmosphere that they're creating in which the customer is the value and not just trying to make a dollar. And to me, that's a pretty good picture of just the difference of a team. They're both producing a fast food product. In fact, McDonald's has a great chicken sandwich. Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich is a whole lot better. And even if it wasn't better, I would still go to Chick-fil-A simply because of the experience from their team. So my question to you is, what kind of a team do you have? Do you have a Chick-fil-A? Do you got a McDonald's? You say, I'm not in the fast food industry. Well, you're in a product industry. You're giving every person an experience. You're allowing them to taste the Jesus that you display to the people that walk through the door. So what are they tasting? Is it something where the team is cohesive? Do they care about people? Is it organized? Is it administrated well? Is the worship excellent? Is everything that you do excellent? I'm not talking about perfect. I'm just saying excellent. And there's a big difference. I love all the great lights and sound and all that, but youth ministry, we're lucky to have a living room and a boombox. And what I've come to realize is this: no matter what it is, whether you've got the great lights and sound or the boombox, you can still have a great performing team that produces a quality product that glorifies God. Excellence is doing the best you can with what you got. It's not perfection. And you have to understand that we are the ones that are called to assess what kind of team we have right now, what kind of team you're developing, what kind of team that you see yourself leading in the future. So you've got to assess the team. Begin to say, okay, where are we now? And then hopefully after tonight's call, you can say, I'm going to train our team to take it to the next level. There are some of you, and I recognize, I don't know how many are on this call, but some of you probably just at the very beginning. You're like, team, what? I just got it last week. And you're doing good just to be surviving, probably through your wife and your kids and everybody. You're the one-act family putting this on. And then there's some of you, you maybe have a quality team. You've been doing this for years and years, man. You guys run like a well-oiled machine. So regardless of whether you're the very beginning or if you're the very trained and excellent, I think these are 7 characteristics and qualities of high-performing teams that would be good for us to reflect on and to see if they're at our teams that we're leading right now. So I'm going to dive into them. Remember this, awareness is half the battle. Let me say that again. Awareness is half the battle. You got to understand where you're at and what are some qualities and characteristics. If you can understand that, that's half the battle. It's just recognizing, okay, these are some things we have or some things that we don't have. Let's dive into the first one. The first one is vision and purpose. It's a characteristic of a high-performing team. You don't have a high-performing team or a great team just because everybody showed up to an event. Just because you got a lot of people, that means you have a crowd. We're not looking for a crowd, we're looking for a team. And the only way you can have a great team is to have a common purpose or common vision. So if I were to walk into any of your youth groups right now, or whatever department you're leading, or any ministry department you're leading, my first question to you is, what is your vision? What's the purpose that you as a group come together and meet? Because if you don't know that, the odds are the people that you're leading don't know that either. And even if they think they know it, the odds are every person has a different point of view. Why? Because there's not one single vision and one single purpose. I'm reminded of the Tower of Babel. I've studied that story out for many years, and there is an incredible principle with that story. If you'll remember, it's the beginning of time. The people come together, they're a wicked generation, and they begin to say in their hearts that we can build this tower to heaven. And God looks down and says, these people are one people with one language and one purpose. Nothing they do will be, anything they do is possible. There's nothing that they don't purpose to do that they can't do. And if you'll remember correctly, what happens is God brings division and begins to launch the different people groups from this moment. He separates their language. He separates them as a people. He divides them. He brings division. There's no longer a singleness of vision. There is plurality of vision. Everybody's got their own ideas and thoughts. They don't speak the same. They don't talk the same. And so then you begin to see the population of the earth through these different people groups. Well, even though that principle was used in a connotation that was negative, saying that these wicked people were going to build a tower to heaven, and that they could have done it because there were one people, one language, one purpose, even though that connotation was negative, what we have to understand is there is a biblical principle in that story. The principle is this: one people, one language, one purpose, nothing's impossible. One people, one language, one purpose, nothing is impossible. The devil understands this, which is why he brings division into the body of Christ. Many times he'll bring someone that will try to hijack or derail the vision of the senior leader. He understands the high-performing team. They got purpose and vision, and it's all together, and it's one. Now, when you have purpose and vision, as the youth pastor, you have to understand it has to follow the senior leadership's vision. You cannot be a Lone Ranger out there trying to build your own youth group apart from the vision of the main church. So that's your caveat, your point to understand and notes. Your vision should mold easily and fluidly under the senior pastor's leadership, under his vision. The second thing is this: your vision and your purpose ought to build a bridge to help young people transition into the main church. I've been to churches all over America, and I am always concerned when the youth group is blowing up, doing incredible things, and you ask, hey man, when's the last time you've been to the main service? They say, well, I never go. Where do we go? We've got our own service. I know that sounds cool. I know it's great, and it's a fun thing to say, hey man, listen, we actually have a youth service that's specific for our youth, and they love it so much, and they're getting so much. But the problem is, if we don't bridge that gap from the youth to the main service, we lose them when they go off to college. The problem then remains is that they never quite make it to the main service and the main church. We lose them. So you've got to make sure that you're building a bridge. So that's the first thing, vision and purpose. Second thing is this, you got to build relationships. A quality or characteristic of a high-performing team is that they're very relational. People do things out of relationship more than a title or position. If you find yourself saying, well, I'm the youth pastor, that's why I want you to do it, you're leading from a title position. You're leading based on who you are in your authority and not out of relationship. My best friend in the whole world is Glasgow. He's the director of Choir the Fire. But I used to work for my best friend at Teen Mania while he was still my best friend. And I'll tell you this, I had separate bosses. One was a great boss. He was not my best friend. Quintel, he was my best friend, and he was my boss. And I'll tell you, I did more for Quintel than I would have ever done for anybody else. Because the relationship was that he invested in me, he loved me, he believed in me, he had so much invested into me personally that I knew if he said we could do it, we could do it. And so sometimes high-performing teams, you say, well, you know, they do so much for the leader. I would venture to say the leader probably has done so much for them. It's not been about what you can do for me. It's the leader saying, what can I do to you or for you? And there are a couple of ways you say, well, how do you build relationships? I'm just going to give you a couple of quick things. First thing is this, you got to create a safe environment. Create a safe place. A place where people feel safe. They're not going to be torn down. They're going to be built up. Second thing is this, you got to establish trust with your team. You got to establish trust with your team. That means they trust you because you do what you say you're going to do. If you're one of those leaders that every time you say you're going to do something, you do it, you have to understand you're building trust. They say, hey, I'll follow this guy. Why? Because in our relationship, everything he said he would do, he's done it. The converse is true as well. If you're someone that says you'll do everything or do something and you never do it, you're not building trust, you're losing trust. And when you're going in a relational aspect and it's a high-performing team and you're building the relationship, you got to build trust. Do what you say you're going to do and make sure you follow through as a leader. There's a couple of other quick things that I'll just mention. You need to be authentic. That means you need to be real. When I say be real, don't dump on your people. I think you should always counsel up or lateral, but don't dump down. Don't go and tell them all your problems. However, you can still be authentic and real. You could say, man, there's areas in my life where I struggled in my quiet time. But thank God, now it's not a struggle. And out of your victory, you're real. You tell them about things that you've gone through, and you counsel them through the things where you have victory. And then the last part of building relationships, develop interdependence. That you rely on them, they rely on you. It's not a one-sided relationship. That's going to help you build relationships. I'm kind of flying through this. I've got 5 more points, and I want to be conscious of the time. I know we started late, so I'm going to hit just a few of those things, make sure you get it. The third thing is this. So the first one was you got to have vision and purpose. Second thing is you got to build relationships. Third thing is this, you've got to believe in empowerment. Now listen, we're talking about high-performing teams. If you're going to build a team, you can't do it all by yourself. That's right, you can't do it all by yourself. So if you're doing everything by yourself, you're not building a team. You've got to place a high belief in the people that are around you. I like to think of it as this. For those that don't know, I'm launching a church right now. It's our second church to launch in the last 5 years. It's been a great journey. We launch next month. So these things that I'm telling you about, these are things that we're actually walking through right now as we're launching our launch team, and we're. But I've come to believe this: You've got to find the right people, and then you empower them to do what you're asking them to do. Maybe you can't trust the people around you because you've got the wrong people. Empowerment really focuses on people. When you have the right person, you believe that they are called to be there with you. You believe they've got gifts. You believe they got talents. You believe that's the person God brought to you. So now what you're going to do is you're going to let that belief be translated into an empowerment. You're going to give them responsibilities. You're going to give them assignments. You're going to give them resources and authority and the responsibility to do what you're asking them to do. Why? Because you're creating a team, a high-performing team, and the only way to do that is to believe in the people that you have around you. You say, well, Jim, listen, man, I wouldn't trust them to do anything. Well, you know what I'd do? I'd get them off my team. If you're saying that about the people around you, it would be better for you to start from the ground up than for you to have the wrong people on the team that you're trying to build. Get the right people. I love that book, Jimn Kyles, Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus, and then get them in the right seats. First, you got to get them on the bus. So get them there, and then you begin to empower them. How do you do that? You give them ownership. So I give them ownership. What does that mean, Jim? Well, I'm glad you asked. That means you've got to let go of all of the control and start to say, hey, one of the things that I do is give away some of the ability to make decisions on things that they do or don't matter, but to them it would matter. Say you're painting a wall in your youth building, and you get your team together, and everybody on your team thinks that wall would be black. You think the wall to be yellow, like Nate's room, and so you're like, man, it ought to be yellow. And they're like, man, it ought to be black. And you say, well, it's going to be yellow, dadgummit, because I like yellow. Okay, well, that's great. You're not giving ownership to these people. Why don't you paint it black, let the people have a win, and feel like every time they walk in that room that that's their wall, that you let them paint their color. There's so many examples of little decisions that many leaders tend to micromanage, and in doing so, they keep their team from actually taking the ownership for the project. Then they get mad because they want to know why nobody's helping them. Nobody helps me. Ain't nobody going to help me paint this yellow wall? Well, no, they're not going to help you paint that yellow wall. They didn't even want it yellow. They wanted it black. And so then we cry and we whine because nobody's helping us, yet the whole time we never gave any ownership some of the decision-making. The reality is it don't matter what color it is. Give people some of the ability to make decisions and the ownership of what it is that they're doing. I love Theodore Roosevelt. He said this quote that I thought was really good, and I think it captures it well. He says, the best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and then self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. Let me say that again. The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. You've got to have the right people on the team, so you've got to believe in empowerment. Fourth thing to a high-performing team is flexibility. Flexibility. What does that mean? That means this: you got to be open to change. Open to change. Have you ever heard this sentence? That's how we've always done it. But why do you do it that way? Well, because that's the way we've always done it. Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. When you hear someone say, well, that's the way we've always done it, those elephants in the room, you got to get the elephants out the room. You got to say, no, why do we do it this way? One of my best characteristics and qualities as a leader is to ask good questions. And as your responsibility, and you're building this team, your responsibility is going to be to ask great questions as well. You'll find those people that they love to do the same thing over and over again. They like consistency. They go to the same seat. They park in the same parking spots. They go to the same grocery store. They have these same patterns all throughout their life. And then they bring that same thing into your youth group. And the last thing you need in your youth group is mundane, blasé, blah, blah, blah. You need to get some flexibility. You've got to get some creativity. You've got to go outside of what's comfortable for you and get into what's comfortable for the young people. I have a great litmus test. It's this: When's the last time you were uncomfortable? That's right. When's the last time, as the leader, you were uncomfortable? If the question is, it's been a long time, then you're probably asking people to conform to you than trying to relate better with your team and with the people that you lead. We ought to be out of our comfort zones often. Why? Because a flexible leader gets out of what's comfortable for him and gets into what's comfortable for those that they lead. And your way is not the only way. So say, look, I'm open to change. Maybe let's talk about it. One of my greatest phrases that I say to my kids, look, I'm open. Someone says, hey, Jim, can we change the lights? I'm open. Hey, Jim, can we add this new program? Hey, I'm open. Hey, Jim, I'm open. Why? Because I'm open to the flexibility of my team making different decisions than me. We also have another saying, the best idea wins. And let me tell you, lots of times that best idea is not my idea. And that's okay because we're flexible. We're open to change. And that leads us to the fifth point, which is teachable. Got to be teachable. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. We're all going to make them. It's just a matter of time. Many have already probably made lots of them, and that's okay. Just be teachable. Be open to correction and be open to feedback. That means that you allow others to speak into your life. As the senior youth pastor, as the senior leader, as whatever leadership role you're in, you have to say, I am teachable, and I'm open for other people to speak into my life. You say, well, they may say mean and hurtful things. Well, they might. They might say a few things that don't make you feel good. But, the reality is I would rather know what people are saying about me that I have the potential to change than the unknown. Many people will just leave your team without ever giving you any feedback. And most of the time it's because they never feel the leader's really open to their feedback. So being teachable and saying, hey, I'm open. Tell me, how is it that I can lead and teach you better or train better? And how is it that I can make this team better? Hey, tell me how I can communicate in a way that's a little bit better than the way that I do now. And a good tool to learn is the DISC factor. It's personality profile, DISC. Nate and them, I'm sure they got it. It's absolutely incredible because you have dominant, influencers, DISC, something, what are the rest of them, Nate? You can probably haul them off. But go and get it because the dominant person talks differently than he does to the S or the C person. And knowing that says, man, I'm open to communicating better. I'm teachable in the way that I lead you as a team. Just recognizing that they're different people and they all need to be communicated to differently. So let's go into number 6. Number 1 was vision and purpose. Number 2 was build relationships. Number 3 was you got to believe in empowerment. Number 4 is you got to be flexible. Number 5 is you got to be teachable. Number 6 is something I think many people miss most of the time, and it's this: you got to give recognition and appreciation. Very, very, very simple. But yet it's one that many of us overlook many times. So you got to let people feel valued. When's the last time we celebrated a win with our team? So you had an incredible youth group service. When was the last time you took all the leaders out and you bought them dinner? Was the last time you celebrated what God did through the team and really just said, man, look, we're not going to talk about anything. We're not going to talk about shots. We just want to celebrate what God did. I thank you for being a part of this team. You did an incredible job. When's the last time we given awards to our team members? Like most valuable player, this person, the most set up chairs in the month of July, whatever it is, but you're giving awards. Recognize and understand this. What gets rewarded gets repeated. Say that again. What gets rewarded gets repeated. Now, I'm a father of 3 wonderful, wonderful kids. They're probably in the background if you can hear them. I've had to shut the door and kind of get away. But I have found in being a father that what it is that I celebrate and reward with my kids is what they tend to repeat. And don't you know that many of us were the same like kids? It doesn't change when you get older. Whatever we reward, whatever we celebrate, that's what people repeat. And so just take a mental note. Just think about the last time you celebrated anything with your team. It's a good question to ask. If it's been a while, you've got to make it a little more consistent. Also, just a side note, if you celebrate salvations and baptisms in your youth service, you're going to find people bringing unchurched teenagers who are away from God. Why? Because you're celebrating it in the middle of your service. You're celebrating what it is that you call the focus of your youth ministry. And as you do it, you're going to see more and more of the unchurched, unsaved, the lost come. And it's going to create a culture that we value those souls of the people that are in our lives. So number 6 was recognition and appreciation. And then the last thing is this: as we end tonight, I want to be cognizant of your time. Is you got to have high morale. That's the intangible. That's where you walk in a room and it's electric. We're right now launching this church. I said earlier, it's interesting to see what God is doing. We're in the middle of a miracle. I have to just tell you, this is the second church that we've been a part and have the privilege to launch. And there is something about this team. In fact, Kenny Ortiz is another one of my dearest friends in the whole world. He has been to both of our last preview services. We're doing about a preview service each month before we launch next month. And he has just told me that as he comes out of it, he's just shaking his head. He's like, bro, there is something electric about your team. Like, I don't even know how to put my finger on it. Like, they're smiling, they're excited people. He's like, I don't even care about the numbers. I'm just telling you that there's something about this team. There seems to be a high morale in every person who I talk to. Now, trust me, it's not me. I'm not a perfect leader. I think God is just doing a miracle. Thank God. God does miracles in spite of our shortcomings. But, it's that intangible. When someone walks into your youth group, when someone walks into your team, someone walks into you, do they sense that pride, that satisfaction? Now, I know the Bible talks about pride being one of the 7 deadly sins. I'm not talking about pride like put a chip on your shoulder. I'm just talking about pride of ownership. Like, I'm excited to be a part of this team. We have a saying at our church, this is my church. And I make all of our people say, this is my church. So we say a piece of paper, this is my church. This ain't Jim's church. And reality, it's God's church. We all understand that. We all know that. And the fact that God is using us, but at some point, at some level, there has to be this natural correlation that the sovereignty of God in heaven is translated into the natural of this human body. And at some point, us as team members, we've got to say, this is our church. This is our youth group. This is our team. This is us. And we will make it whatever we make it. And by God's help, we're going to see a miracle, whether that's 30 kids, whether that's 10,000 kids. It's not about the numbers to see big crowds. It's about numbers of changed lives and knowing that God has ordained a group for me to lead and to pastor. And so in that, is there a sense of pride and satisfaction? If there's not, it's just one of those indicators that you've got to say, there seems to be a lack of high morale. Are you praying together? Are you having fun together? Are you doing things outside of the church together? Does your team want to hang out with you? Do they want to hang out at all? And those are some questions that will help you say, okay, yeah, well, we got kind of a high morale. You can sense that something electric is taking place, and that will help you to at least assess whether or not you've got a great high-performing team. It's one of the indicators. Now, listen, there are a lot of other indicators. There's probably 20 that you can kind of look at and say, oh, these are great. I really feel like these are 7 that if we, as the leaders of the teams God has placed in our lives, we're going to see something incredible happen. And God is going to move in a powerful, powerful way. And I just want to pray over every person who is online right now, and then I'm going to turn it back over and let these guys do whatever they want to do. But I want to pray for each of you. Let me just encourage you. I've been in youth ministry for many years. And I understand that you guys are in an upward battle. I mean, it's uphill. It's guns blazing. You guys are in an all-out cultural war. You're in a war many times where you're understaffed, you're underfunded, you're under-resourced. You're doing the best you can. I worked bivocational when I moved to Houston. I came out of full-time ministry and went to work full-time and took a part-time position at a church. I understand what it is to work 40 hours at a job and then have to pastor young people or get to pastor young people. There is no part-time youth pastor. And I want to encourage you that God has called you for this season, for this time. And these principles are good principles, but don't forget the supernatural. You need to make sure you're praying with your team, praying with your spouse, and praying with your teenagers, that there is a supernatural aspect. You can have all the characteristics and qualities and still nothing happen. There's something sovereign about that. That God puts his super on top of our natural. Sometimes he does that so you don't walk in pride. I don't know and pretend to know where each of you are, but I do want to encourage you in this, that God called you. He's placed you in the life and the place that you're at, so he will give you everything that you need. This generation is hurting. This generation is hungry, and they need what's inside of you. And so I want to commission you and challenge you to go and to build a great team, that God would use you, your team, to touch the world around you, and that we would see a revival, a reviving of the hearts of the young people back to God, and that we could see this nation touched by the power of God. So let me just pray over you. Father, I just thank you right now for every person who is online. Lord, would you be with them in a powerful way in their room right now, touching God. Some of them may even feel a little overwhelmed. I sense even a little bit of inadequacy. Maybe this downcast heart or spirit where it's like, man, I'm not doing any of these things. God, that's okay. You put them on this call just to begin to recognize. Again, half the battle is just recognizing. Lord, would you equip them? Would you empower them? I even know there are a few people on this online meeting that they need to get people out of their team. Lord, you called them to make hard decisions and to let there be a changing of the guard. There's even people in this meeting now that have asked, God, should I get rid of them? What should I do? And Lord, I just sense you saying it's a new season, it's a new wineskin, and there's been a fear of paralyzing them for being alone, that they don't want to be alone, they don't want to do it all by themselves. But God, I sense that as you help them to remove those other people, you're going to bring the right people supernaturally. And Lord, I pray for Call to Youth Ministry. Would you bless this ministry? Would you continue to resource it and equip it? Continue to let it minister to the youth pastors, that we would see a generation touched by your power, by your grace. God, I pray that there would be a call to fasting and to prayer, deep times of intimacy with you. And Lord, that out of a connection with you, that they would minister boldly, powerfully to the young people. And Lord, that you would move in their hearts and in their lives. I pray a hedge of protection around every family represented. I bind any spirit of strife or division, separation. God, I pray that you would bring unity in a supernatural way. Cover them, protect them, and keep them safe. Lord, we thank you. We call all these things done. I commission angels to bring it to pass. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. That was great. Do you have a few minutes for some question and answer?
Absolutely.
Does anybody in the Hangout have any questions for Jim? Can we hear anybody?
You got me?
All right. Wow. Exciting crowd.
Hey, can you hear me now?
I'll ask a question. Jim, are you guys muted, or you still have anything to say?
I hear John trying to...
Oh, wait.
Can you hear it?
There we go. Here's part of the problem. I've got my speakers off.
We've been talking to Nathan about his listening skills.
I usually am part of the problem. I'm sorry. Was there any questions you guys had?
Can you guys hear me?
I sure can.
Yeah. You got me. You got me, Nate.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. I have a question about we have a team and we're restocking. We have people who roll off every couple of years, and we're coming up with new names to put on there. And there's one mom in particular, we call her complaining mom because she just complains about everything we do. And there's a lot of suggestions that we should invite her to be a part of our team to try to bring her in and help her understand the vision and whatnot. What do you think about bringing someone who is openly hostile towards what we do onto the team in an effort to try to pull her in and help her see what our goals are?
That's a great question. I see Joel's over there. He's shaking his head. No, no, no. But, the biggest thing is this. I wouldn't bring anybody on who you know is vocally hostile towards the youth or is going to bring complaining. Yeah, I would find a way to finesse it. Maybe you know, that's a tough situation. There's so many different dynamics. I'm a pastor, and so my first heart is to try to include every person. But I have to tell you, one bad apple spoils the bunch. That is a principle that we live by. When you find someone that constantly has this rotten attitude, it infects others. So what I try to do is I try to pastor them through it. First off, if they're already on the team, I never just try to steal someone off the team or chunk them off the team, get them off. We always try to pastor through it. That means you've got to have the guts to confront them, to be open, to be honest, to be direct, and then put them on a plan for life change and give them coaching and feedback. And then after a couple of times of working with them, if that doesn't change, then you've set the course up. Listen, if we continue to hit this roadblock, we're going to make steps that will ensure that this group's going to grow in spite of you. Despite, you know, you're going to have to leave. If they're not on the team, I would just be real slow to bring them on the team. I find a creative way to maybe ask. Some of the things that I like to do is get volunteers that are lethal or detrimental to a department. Mm-hmm. If there is a knitting class, I would try to sew her into that knitting class. I'd find her into a department where she could actually grow and be around other women that maybe would coach her in her life where she's at. But I definitely would bring her on the team.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Jim. You know, you mentioned this is Nate here. You mentioned being teachable. For us to describe his answer. Oh, we see Nathan, which means we might be hearing Jim soon.
Welcome back.
We just thought it was best to demonstrate how youth ministry works, like in this hangout as well. Hence the.
Nathan, can we hear?
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
There we go.
Yes. Hey, Nate, ask me the question one more time.
Okay, so just the balance between, you know, you want to be and I want to see this in a dance gym, I really do.
That's right.
Just how to be teachable and stay teachable with your students and with your leaders, but also balancing that with leading and you know, finding God's call and direction, and then leading in a real positive, God-honoring way.
That's great. That's a great question. Yeah, there is a difference between listening to everybody and doing just what everybody else says, kind of like a yes man mentality, and then getting honest, constructive feedback. So it's an excellent question. In a nutshell, the best way that we do it is we do a 360 view of feedback. So that means I get feedback from those who I report to. So if you're the youth pastor, you're going to get feedback from the senior pastor. You're going to say, hey, what are some things that I can do that are would help us? What are some things that you've watched my leadership now at some level? Surely you've seen you somehow. You say, give me some feedback, thoughts, maybe the way I'm speaking, the way you see me leading, the way I carry myself. So that's a view of someone who is above you. They're going to speak into your life. Then also a lateral. maybe those people that are in other departments in the church, and then those that you're leading. And so it's a 360 view of your leadership style. Maxwell has a great book on that. Andy Stanley also has a lot to say about that. And so what we're allowing people to do is speak in their life, and more than like, hey, did you like my decision question? I'm not really concerned about if you like the decision. What I'm more concerned about is, do you feel like I care? Okay. When I speak to you, do I make myself clear? So what you're looking at are principles in the way that you lead, the way that you communicate, versus just a specific decision. Like, did you like the fact that we painted the wall black? Does that make sense? So you're looking for principles in the way that you're communicating. When I lead the students from the front, do you feel like I can hold their attention? What are some things that we could do better? And so you're getting some general ideas and thoughts in the leadership style that you hold, and maybe what a different perspective is that others have of your leadership style. And that's how I think that it's more effective. And then you just got to be open. Some of it, you got to chew the hay and leave the stubble. Some people you'll be able to know out of malicious, they're just being rude and ugly and mean and vindictive. I'll tell you, the best surveys that we find at work are the ones that are anonymous. Now, anonymous is kind of a catch-22. Anonymous is good because people feel like they can be honest, but they're also, they can kind of be a little hateful or spiteful because people know that you don't know who they are. And so but you can typically, on an anonymous survey, figure out if it's that one Miss Susie who always has something negative to say, just in the tone. They don't really hide it well. But I would encourage you to, especially for those beneath you, to do an anonymous survey and find a way. And there's lots of great surveys out there. SurveyMonkey is a great way to do it. I'm sure Nate's got 1,000 of them, but that's what the 360 looks like.
Sure.
Paul, it's good to see you, man. I think I said Joel, but I meant Paul, so it's good to see you, man. I'm watching.
That's all right, man. No worries.
There's actually one more question here from someone on Facebook, from Angela, and I'll just read you what she wrote. This is a great closing question. Maybe give us some good action steps for walking away from the meeting. She wrote, how to build a team with these qualities while you're relaunching and rebuilding a youth ministry at the same time. We're trying to find what works for our ministry context, build relationships with kids, and build a team. So where do you start? I think that's a big question, and for anyone in youth ministry, great ideas. What do I do tomorrow when I already don't have any time?
Wow, that's a great question. Where do you start? That's always the hardest thing to do. I got to tell you, you can't lead people if you don't know where you're going. When we were missioned out to launch the church, I took a 3-month hiatus. We started launching in May, June, July. I took 3 months, and I just kind of broke away. I was in Arkansas, and several trips. I got away because I felt like I needed clarity with where I'm supposed to go. And when you're relaunching something, those can be challenging moments simply because you've got to have this old residue of what was, and you have this new spark of what could be. And so somehow you got to bring what was and what could be, and you got to find the center of it. And many times leaders will just begin to start moving forward, never really knowing where it is that they're going. They're like, well, we'll know when we get there. Well, no, that's not really how leadership works. You've got to at least have an understanding, where is it that I feel like God has called us to go. If you can't articulate it yourself, then your people will never get it. And so I like to break away, especially when there's an old thing that you're getting rid of. Just break away for just maybe a day or two if you can. Spend some time prayer, fasting. Fasting is really a key. It's voluntary weakness. It's where we deny our flesh the things that we desire. We say, God, I just need to hear from you. I want my spirit to be sensitive. And then you allow God just to minister to you in a profound way. And then out of finding the direction, you're going to begin to articulate. Once I find a direction, I want to write it down. So first I would find direction. Secondly, I would begin to write it down. I've understood something in my life. I'm a great orator. I like to speak. I actually think a lot while I'm speaking. I say I'm a great orator. That kind of sounded bad. I'm not great. I like to articulate. So for me, I'd rather think while I'm talking. And I have found the hardest thing for me is to actually write it down. But when I write it down, it solidifies what it is that I say. And so now I've become a prolific writer, and all the things that I'm going to do, if I can write down what I feel God's put in my heart, it causes me to really hone in and define and refine what God has placed inside of me. And so I would challenge you first, find it, the direction God's called you to, begin to write it. And then from there, just begin to share the vision, and you'll see people that God will bring to you who resonate with the same vision God placed inside of you. And that's how the team really will begin to form. Sometimes people try to just get a bunch of people together, and they're gatherers. Many of you guys are gatherers. You're youth pastors. But if you don't find the vision, articulate the vision, and have a clear path quickly, that crowd will dismay because you never pull together a team. And so, again, you're trying to build a team. I hope that answered the question.
It's real good. And Jim, we're getting more questions here now, and I just want to let you guys know we got to wrap up. We just want to try to keep this to a good time frame so that you know what to expect, and we're not going to just drag on for hours and hours, although we could. But this full video is going to be posted live here on the site. We'll be posting it here shortly. Feel free to comment with your questions on the video when it goes live, and I'm sure Jim and all of us will be checking back and responding and chatting back and forth. But guys, thank you so much, and Jim, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate you sharing your time. I talked with him earlier, and of course he's as busy as anyone, so we really appreciate you taking a moment just to pour into some youth pastors here. And thank you everyone who's here. I think this was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of these. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of these without duct tape. We'll see how that goes. But I'm really encouraged every time I get a chance to even just connect with what God's doing in a lot of youth groups around the country. So look forward to doing more. And please come on, stop on by if you're looking for just some more ideas, more support and help, consider, we'd love to talk with you about the training groups starting up. They meet just like this. They're on the Call to Youth Ministry website, calltoyouthministry.com, and we meet just like this. We get together in live video chat. We don't share it publicly, but we get together in the same format and just talk ministry and talk through training and just pray together. And so if that's something that's you're interested in, check out the site. Find us on Facebook. You got Nathan's email, my email. Our phone numbers are on the website. So we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love your feedback as well. Let us know how we did. Don't tell us too much about how we messed up in the beginning and took us about 10 minutes to get this link live. We know that. That happened. That was our fault.
We planned it.
Sorry. Yeah, it was actually a very complicated plan of not planning enough.
Yeah, we're testing flexibility.
Exactly.
That's right.
One thing to add to what you said, Nate, is our next Youth Pastor Church is going to be March the 19th, so it's exactly 1 month away, and that happens to also be the same week that we are relaunching training. So if you are interested in training, it's happening a month from now. So that's all I wanted to add.
Great. Thank you. So good. Well, we'll wrap this up, guys. Again, thank you, Jim. Thanks, everyone. We're looking forward to a lot more discussion next time as well. We're going to try to go at a discussion forum next time with everyone that's on this video chat, so a lot more interaction. Should be interesting. But, Jim, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you next month on March 19th.
Thanks, Jim.
God bless.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.